I'm Ruth Johnson. I'm a historian of modern South Africa, based here in the history department. I research and teach on the modern history of South Africa, so the 20th and 21st century. We come right up to the present day in some of my modules. And we look at the kind of unfolding political history of the country, particularly from 1948 onwards, after the founding of the so-called apartheid state, which was a state founded on a system of racial segregation. We look at the men and the women who organised against that state, who were trying to bring about a fairer society and bring about a different political system. So we study what's known as the anti-apartheid or the liberation struggle in South Africa. And my own research focuses in particular on the involvement of young people within those organisations and movements, particularly from the mid-1970s onwards. And I also look particularly at the kind of relationships between young men and young women within those movements, so the gender politics of them. I'm just finishing up a book, which is all about young women's role within the anti-apartheid liberation struggle. It looks in particular at two young women who became activists in the mid-1970s and who followed different paths from the kind of same starting point. And we look at how their stories come to be known by us is one of the things that I'm really interested in, how stories get passed around and who stories become the ones that we hear about. One of the great things about teaching and researching at Durham is the fact that I get to actually teach on the very thing that I'm doing research on in any given moment. So the last couple of years in putting together the book, I've also been teaching, especially final year students. We've been working together on the same material that I've been using for the book, kind of looking at particularly photographs, films, novels, stories, oral history collection, all around the anti-apartheid liberation struggle and kind of working through that material together. It's fantastic to work at Durham as a historian of Africa because there are so many of us who work on the history of the African continent. There are 6 of us in total who work on different parts of the continent at different times. Durham and South Africa might seem like they're very far apart, but there are actually a host of connections kind of bringing those two places closer together, especially over time. So Ruth first was a very famous anti-apartheid activist who worked alongside the likes of Nelson Mandela during the 1950s and 60s in South Africa. She went into exile and ended up in Durham, teaching at the university, teaching sociology here in the 1970s. She went on to be assassinated by the apartheid state in the 1980s, but I know that my students find it really exciting to discover this kind of unexpected crossing of their own path with that of one of the people that they're learning about. So if you come to Durham, you can study African history at every level. So you can take out Introduction to African History in the first year, the module is known as Power in Africa. And you can follow that right through in your module choices in second and third year, working on with the specialisms of the staff that are based here. And when you get to your third year, you never know, you might be working with somebody co-creating the next exciting project.